The steak knife felt cold in my hand, not nearly as cold as the words that just slithered out of my wife's mouth, slicing through the festive chatter of my own 35th birthday dinner. It was supposed to be perfect. Sarah had insisted on this place, Antonio's, the kind of spot with dim lighting, heavy silverware, and waiters who materialized out of the shadows. My parents were here, beaming across the table. My sister, cracking jokes. A couple of my closest buddies, already 3 beers deep and debating sports statistics. And Sarah, my wife of 6 years, glowing under the soft lights, her hand resting protectively on her slight baby bump. The bump we'd waited for, prayed for, celebrated with tears and champagne just 3 months ago. Tonight was meant to be a double celebration, my birthday and the impending arrival of our first child, the symbol of everything we'd built. But then she leaned closer, her voice a conspiratorial whisper that somehow cut through the noise like a siren. Her eyes, usually warm pools of chocolate brown, held a strange, almost defiant glint. "David," she breathed, the scent of her expensive perfume suddenly cloying, nauseating. "There's something I have to tell you. This baby." She paused, her gaze flicking nervously towards my mother, then locking back onto mine with unnerving intensity. "It's not yours." My fork, laden with garlic mashed potatoes, clattered onto the plate. Did I hear that right? The background noise, the clinking glasses, the laughter from the next table, my dad launching into an anecdote, seemed to warp and fade, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in my ears. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis, like the floor had dropped out from under my chair. Not mine. The words echoed in the sudden, terrifying vacuum of my mind. Not mine. I stared at her, searching her face for some sign, any sign, that this was a joke. A twisted, cruel, horrible joke, maybe fueled by too much wine. Though she hadn't been drinking, sticking religiously to water since the pregnancy test came back positive. But her expression was deadly serious, etched with a mixture of fear and something else resolve. It was like looking at a stranger wearing my wife's face. Our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity, the universe contracting to the space between us across that white tablecloth. Her lower lip trembled slightly, but her gaze didn't waver. She meant it. Every syllable was a hammer blow against the fragile structure of my reality. I'm David. Just David. An architect. I design buildings, structures meant to last, to withstand storms. Solid. Dependable. That's how I thought of myself, how I thought of my life with Sarah. We met in our late 20s, a whirlwind romance that settled into what I believed was comfortable, deep affection. We bought a house in a decent suburb, fixed it up together on weekends. We hosted barbecues, went on hikes, talked about growing old on the porch swing we installed last summer. 6 years. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. Stable, happy, building a future brick by brick. The pregnancy, that was the final, crucial piece. We'd been trying for almost 2 years. There were moments of doubt, hushed anxieties, appointments with specialists. Then, finally, those 2 pink lines. The relief, the sheer, unadulterated joy was overwhelming. I'd felt like I was walking on air for weeks. We started planning the nursery, arguing playfully over color schemes, blue or yellow. We told our families, celebrated with friends. It felt like everything was finally falling into place, solidifying. Solid, like one of my buildings. Now, with 4 words, she detonated a bomb right in the foundation. Looking back, were there signs? Tiny cracks in the facade I'd willfully ignored? Maybe. Sarah had seemed distant the past few months. I chalked it up to pregnancy hormones, the exhaustion, the anxieties that came with impending motherhood. She'd started working late more often. She's a marketing exec. Deadlines are part of the job, right? Her phone, once casually left on the coffee table, now seemed permanently attached to her hand, screen down, buzzing silently. She changed the password, shrugging it off as a security update recommendation. There were a couple of weekend work retreats that seemed unusual for her company, but she'd come back complaining about boring presentations, bringing me a cheap souvenir keychain. I'd hugged her, told her I missed her, and never questioned it further. Why would I? This was Sarah. My Sarah. The woman I trusted implicitly, the woman carrying our child. Our child. The phrase now tasted like ash in my mouth. Had she been nervous when we announced the pregnancy? Was that excitement or fear I saw in her eyes? How long had this lie been living under our roof, breathing the same air, sleeping in our bed? The thought sent a wave of nausea through me, colder and more paralyzing than the initial shock. My mother must have noticed my expression shift, the blood draining from my face. David? Honey, are you all right? You look pale. Her voice pierced the fog. Sarah flinched, pulling back slightly, her hand dropping from her belly. She shot me a look, a silent plea, a warning? I couldn't tell. All I could feel was a roaring in my ears and a strange, detached numbness spreading through my limbs. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. What could I say? Scream? Flip the table? Accuse her right here, in front of my parents, my sister, my friends, on my goddamn birthday? The scene fractured in my mind. The shouting, the tears, the horrified faces, the ruined celebration. Part of me, the part that still clung to the illusion of our perfect life, wanted to smooth it over, pretend I misheard, force a smile, and ask someone to pass the salt. But another part, a darker, colder part that was rapidly crystallizing from the wreckage, knew that wasn't possible. The carefully constructed building of my life hadn't just developed a crack. It had been leveled, obliterated. Just need some air. I managed to choke out, pushing my chair back abruptly. The legs scraped loudly against the floor, drawing glances from nearby tables. Sarah started to rise, reaching for my arm. David, wait. I flinched away from her touch as if burned. No, I said, my voice low and tight, barely controlled. Stay here. Enjoy the party. The words were laced with a venom I didn't recognize as my own. I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes, the first genuine crack in her composure. Good. Let her feel a fraction of the disorientation, the freefall I was experiencing. I turned, my movements stiff, robotic, and walked towards the exit, ignoring the concerned calls of my name from the table. The restaurant seemed miles long, each step an effort. The ambient noise swelled back in, mocking the silence that had enveloped me just moments before. I pushed through the heavy oak door and stumbled out into the cool night air, gulping it down like a drowning man. The city lights blurred through unshed tears. My birthday, my pregnant wife, a baby that wasn't mine. The words kept swirling, a toxic mantra. The foundation was gone. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in, had turned to dust in an instant. Standing there on the sidewalk, the sounds of celebration muffled behind me. A chilling clarity began to emerge from the chaos. This wasn't just a confession whispered across a dinner table. This was betrayal on a scale I couldn't comprehend. This was war. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach, displacing the nausea. She thought she could just drop this bomb and walk away unscathed. She thought I would just crumble. Oh, she had no idea. No idea at all who she had just pushed over the edge. The numbness was receding, replaced by a glacial rage. A plan. I needed a plan. This wouldn't end with my heartbreak. It would end with consequences. Her consequences. The night air felt sharp, invigorating. The fight had just begun. The walk from the restaurant back to our house. My house, I mentally corrected. The word, our suddenly feeling obscene, was a blur. I didn't take a cab. I needed the distance, the biting cold air on my face to try and process the inferno raging inside me. Each step on the cracked pavement felt heavy, deliberate. My mind raced, replaying Sarah's words, her expression, the whole sickening scene. How long? Who? Why? The questions hammered at me, relentless and agonizing. When I finally reached the front door, my hands were trembling as I fumbled with the keys. The house felt different the moment I stepped inside. Colder. Foreign. Like a stage set where the play had abruptly, tragically ended. The cozy familiarity was gone, replaced by an oppressive silence thick with unspoken lies. I walked through the rooms. The living room where we'd watched movies cuddled on the sofa, the kitchen where we'd cooked together, the half-finished nursery with its unassembled crib and walls painted a hopeful, sunny yellow. Each object, each memory, was now tainted, poisoned by her confession. It felt like walking through the ruins of my own life. I didn't know how much time passed before I heard her key in the lock. I was sitting in the dark, in my armchair, nursing a glass of whiskey I didn't remember pouring. The front door opened, and she hesitated on the threshold, silhouetted against the porch light. David. Her voice was tentative, laced with manufactured concern. The act made my blood run cold. She stepped inside, closing the door softly, plunging the hallway back into near darkness. I didn't respond, just watched her shadowy form move towards the living room entrance. She flicked on a lamp, bathing the room in a soft glow, and jumped slightly when she saw me sitting there, motionless. "David, you scared me," she said, attempting a nervous laugh that died in her throat. "We need to talk." Oh, we needed to talk, all right. But not the conversation she was expecting. Not the one where I broke down, maybe yelled, maybe cried, and then, eventually, maybe even started down the path of forgiveness she probably anticipated. No, the shock had burned away, leaving behind something far more dangerous, a chilling, focused rage. "Who is it, Sarah?" My voice was unervingly calm, devoid of inflection. It seemed to startle her more than shouting would have. She flinched, wrapping her arms around herself, suddenly looking small and vulnerable. Or pretending to. "David, please, let's not do this now. You're upset. I'm upset." "Don't." I cut her off, the single word sharp as broken glass. "Don't patronize me. Don't try to manage this. Just answer the question. Who is the father of the baby you're carrying?" She stared at me, her eyes wide. Then came the tears. Predictable. Crocodile tears, designed to elicit sympathy, to deflect. I messed up, David. So badly. It was a mistake, a stupid, horrible mistake. She started weaving a tale, vague and evasive, about loneliness, feeling disconnected, a momentary lapse in judgment. The classic cheater's script. It was pathetic, insulting. "I asked you who." I repeated, my voice dropping lower, colder. "Not for your self-serving excuses. Give me a name, Sarah." Now, her tears dried up instantly, replaced by a flash of defiance. "Why does it matter? It changes nothing." It was meaningless. Meaningless. I almost laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You destroy our marriage. You lie to me for months about the most fundamental thing imaginable. You let me celebrate, plan, invest my heart and soul into a child that isn't mine, and you call the architect of that destruction meaningless?" "It matters because every lie you've told me matters. It matters because the man whose child you are carrying deserves to know, and I deserve to know who stabbed me in the back while pretending to be my wife." "Who is he?" The confrontation escalated. She shifted tactics, trying anger, defensiveness. "You're backing me into a corner. Why are you being like this?" Then came the blame. "Maybe if you hadn't been so wrapped up in work. Maybe if you paid more attention to me." The cliches were almost comical in their predictability, yet each one felt like another twist of the knife. She painted herself as the victim, neglected and lonely, driven into the arms of another. It was a performance, transparent and repulsive. I saw right through it. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, didn't exist. She was a phantom, a carefully constructed illusion. In her place stood this stranger, manipulative, deceitful, and breathtakingly selfish. I didn't raise my voice again. I just watched her, my expression unreadable. The calmer I became, the more agitated she grew. She paced the room, throwing her hands up, alternating between tearful pleas and angry accusations. And then, in her frustration, she slipped. "Mark wouldn't want this. He didn't want all this drama." Mark. The name hung in the air between us. Mark Jennings, a colleague from her company's downtown office. We'd met him a few times at corporate events. Tall guy, slick back hair, overly expensive suit, smug smile. I'd never liked him, had a vaguely uneasy feeling about the way he sometimes looked at Sarah, but I dismissed it as professional jealousy or my own insecurity. Now, the pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Those late nights at the office, the weekend retreats, the sudden increase in texts that made her jumpy. It wasn't just a random mistake. It was Mark, someone I knew, someone who had shaken my hand, smiled at my face, while sleeping with my wife and letting me believe his child was mine. The betrayal deepened, metastasized. Sarah realized her slip immediately. Her face went pale. "No, I didn't mean it's not." But the damage was done. I had the name. That was the first piece of leverage. I stood up slowly. Sarah flinched back as if expecting a blow. The thought was tempting, a primal urge screaming for release, but I pushed it down. Physical violence wouldn't achieve anything. My revenge would be colder, cleaner, far more devastating. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" She looked stunned. "Get your things. Whatever you need for tonight." and get out of my house. David, you can't be serious. I'm pregnant. Where would I go? Her voice rose in panic. That sounds like a you problem, I replied, my voice utterly devoid of emotion. Perhaps Mark has a spare room. Go. Now. The finality in my tone must have registered. The fight drained out of her, replaced by disbelief and a dawning horror. She stumbled backwards, then turned and hurried towards the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I heard drawers opening and closing, the muffled sounds of frantic packing, punctuated by choked sobs. The sounds brought me no satisfaction, only a profound emptiness. While she packed, I made my first call. Not to a friend, not to family, not yet. I called Benjamin Carter, a divorce lawyer whose name I'd gotten from a colleague who went through a nasty split a few years back. I kept my voice low, explained the situation briefly, clinically. Paternity fraud, adultery, the need for immediate consultation. Carter was all business, efficient and sharp. He advised me not to engage further, not to make threats, just to let her leave and schedule an appointment first thing Monday morning. He also gave me some preliminary advice about securing financial records, emails, anything that could serve as evidence. After hanging up, I went to my home office. I started pulling up bank statements, credit card bills, looking for unexplained hotel charges, expensive gifts, anything that corroborated the timeline forming in my head. The digital trail of her betrayal. Each transaction, each reservation, was another small confirmation, another nail in the coffin of our marriage. Her phone, left charging on the kitchen counter in her haste, buzzed. A text message lit up the screen. From Mark J. It read, "Is he buying it? Need to know if we're good." I didn't touch the phone. Just seeing it, seeing the casual callousness of their collusion, fueled the icy resolve solidifying within me. They thought they could play me for a fool. They thought they could manage the situation, control the narrative. They were wrong. She finally emerged from the bedroom, pulling a small suitcase, her eyes red-rimmed but defiant. She paused at the door, looking back at me, perhaps expecting one last plea, one crack in my armor. She found none. I just stared back, impassive. She opened her mouth, then closed it, turned, and walked out, closing the door softly behind her. The silence she left behind was heavy, but clean. The contamination was gone. Now, the real work began. Carter was right. Document everything. Gather leverage. Prepare for battle. She thought revealing the truth was the bombshell? No. The real explosion was yet to come, and I would be the one holding the detonator. They wanted drama? Mark wouldn't like drama. They were about to star in a goddamn epic. Monday morning arrived with a grim sense of purpose. The weekend had been a hollow echo of my former life. Canceling birthday plans I'd made, fielding concerned calls from family with vague excuses, avoiding the half-finished nursery like it was radioactive. But beneath the surface-level grief, a cold engine of strategy was humming. My meeting with Ben Carter, the lawyer, was brutally efficient. He was a shark in a tailored suit, his eyes sharp, missing nothing. I laid out the facts, the confession, the timeline, the name, Mark Jennings, the text message I'd seen. Carter listened intently, nodding occasionally, his expression unchanging. When I finished, he leaned back. Okay, David, here's how we play this. Paternity fraud is a serious issue, especially combined with adultery in this context. We establish paternity definitively, we document the deception, and we ensure the divorce settlement reflects the egregious nature of her conduct. Financially, we protect your assets. Emotionally, well, that's on you. But legally, we make sure she doesn't profit from this betrayal. His confidence was infectious, sharpening my resolve. The first step was formalizing the separation and demanding a prenatal paternity test. Carter drafted the documents immediately. They were concise, brutal, and left no room for ambiguity. We didn't serve them immediately. Carter advised a tactical delay. Let her stew for a bit, he'd said with a thin smile. Let her wonder what you're doing. Let her reach out to Mark. Let them think they might still control this. So I waited. Sarah sent a few texts, tentative apologies, pleas to talk, accusations of cruelty. I ignored them, letting the silence build. Meanwhile, I gathered ammunition. Carter had advised checking joint accounts and credit cards. I found them. Hotel stays coinciding with her work retreats, expensive dinners I wasn't present for, jewelry purchases that weren't gifts for me. Each charge was meticulously documented, cross-referenced with her supposed schedule. It painted a clear, damning picture of a calculated, long-term affair, not a momentary lapse. The sheer brazenness of it all fueled my determination. Then came the moment for the first strike. Carter suggested timing it for maximum psychological impact. Sarah had, unbelievably, mentioned wanting to have a small, intimate baby shower with her family and a few close friends the following weekend. She'd texted me about it, a pathetic attempt to maintain some semblance of normalcy, or perhaps to guilt me. Perfect, Carter had said. We arranged for a process server to deliver the divorce papers and the legal demand for a paternity test right to her doorstep the morning of the shower. I wouldn't be there to see it, but I could picture the scene. The festive decorations, the pastel-colored gifts, the smiling faces of her family, and then the arrival of the stark, legal documents shattering the charade. The fallout was immediate. My phone exploded with calls and texts, not just from Sarah, but from her mother, her sister, even some mutual friends who had clearly been fed her sanitized version of events. The accusations flew. I was cruel, heartless, vindictive. How could I do this to a pregnant woman? I let most go to voicemail, responding only to a select few of my own family and friends, calmly explaining the core truth. The baby wasn't mine, and the shower was for a child conceived in an affair. The shockwaves spread, silencing many of the accusations against me as the real story began to seep out. Sarah herself left a string of increasingly frantic voicemails, tearful begging, furious threats, desperate negotiations. David, please, don't do this. We can work this out. Think about the baby. The irony was staggering. It's not my baby, Sarah. I texted back, the only reply I sent. Deal with the consequences of your choices. Carter, meanwhile, moved on the financial front. Following his precise instructions based on our state's laws and the evidence of infidelity potentially linked to marital asset dissipation, we filed motions to freeze certain joint assets to prevent her from draining funds. It wasn't about leaving her destitute. It was about protecting what was rightfully mine and preventing marital funds from supporting her and her affair partner. The notification from the bank hit her accounts shortly after the divorce papers. Her panic escalated further. The next phase involved Mark Jennings. Carter advised against direct confrontation, suggesting a more strategic approach. Through some discreet digging, facilitated by a corporate search firm Carter recommended, we discovered Mark was married. His wife, apparently, had no idea about his extracurricular activities. We also found out Mark's position at Sarah's company was somewhat precarious. He was up for a major promotion, contingent on maintaining a clean corporate image. Carter drafted a carefully worded letter to Mark's personal lawyer, whose details we obtained, outlining the situation, mentioning the potential for Sarah's divorce proceedings to publicly name him as the adulterous party and the biological father, and subtly hinting at the damage this revelation could cause to his career and personal life. We didn't threaten, merely stated facts and potential outcomes. It was a calculated checkmate. Mark's reaction, filtered through his lawyer back to Carter, was predictable: panic. He wanted this contained. He wanted silence. Suddenly, Sarah's primary support system, her partner in crime, was more concerned with his own skin than with her plight. The peak confrontation wasn't a shouting match. It was colder, more devastating. It happened during the first mediation session mandated by the court. Sarah arrived looking pale and drawn, flanked by a clearly overwhelmed lawyer she'd likely hired on contingency or with borrowed money. Mark was not present. His lawyer had made it clear he wanted minimal direct involvement. Carter laid out our terms: a swift, uncontested divorce based on adultery and paternity fraud, a fair division of assets acquired before the affair began, with adjustments for the marital funds spent on the affair, no alimony for Sarah, given the circumstances and her own earning potential, and, critically, legal confirmation of non-paternity, releasing me from any and all financial or legal responsibility for the child. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue, bringing up her pregnancy, her emotional distress. Carter calmly presented the pile of evidence: the bank statements, the hotel receipts, copies of text messages Carter had subpoenaed, highlighting the calculated deception. He then mentioned Mark Jennings, his marital status, and his strong desire to avoid public scandal. Sarah's face crumpled. The fight completely drained out of her. She looked at her lawyer, then at me, her eyes pleading. David, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please, don't destroy my life completely. The apology felt hollow, wrung out by desperation, not genuine remorse. I looked at her, this woman who had shared my bed, my dreams, and felt nothing. Just a vast emptiness where love and trust used to be. Destroy your life? I echoed, my voice level. Sarah, you did that yourself. You made choices. You lied, repeatedly. You planned, celebrated, and prepared for a life based on that lie, expecting me to unknowingly foot the bill, emotionally and financially. These aren't punishments, Sarah. These are the direct consequences of your actions. I stood up. Ben has my instructions. Accept the terms, or we proceed to court, where all of this, I gestured to the evidence file, becomes public record, including Mark's involvement. Your choice. I turned to Carter. I think we're done here. Then, I did something symbolic. I reached up, slowly twisted off my wedding ring. The simple gold band I hadn't been able to bring myself to remove until that moment, and placed it deliberately on the table in front of Sarah. Keep it, I said softly. Maybe pawn it. You'll probably need the money. Then I walked out of the room without looking back, leaving her sitting there amidst the wreckage of the life she had deliberately dismantled. The air outside the lawyer's office felt cleaner, lighter. The main battle was won. The divorce would proceed. The paternity test results came back confirming Mark Jennings as the father, just as expected. She lost the house. It was primarily funded by my premarital assets and inheritance, protected by a prenup she'd foolishly signed without much attention. She lost any claim to significant marital assets beyond her own small savings, and she lost any shred of credibility or sympathy she might have hoped for. She was adrift, facing the future she chose alone. The storm had passed, leaving devastation in its wake. But for me, standing there, feeling the sun on my face, it also felt like the first day of my new, albeit scarred, beginning. 2 years. That's how long it's been since the divorce was finalized, since the dust settled on the explosion that detonated my life. 2 years feels like both a lifetime and the blink of an eye. The initial months after the mediation were gray. There was relief. Yes, a profound sense of shedding a toxic burden. But the phantom limb pain of the amputated marriage, the ghost of the future I thought I had, lingered. I threw myself into work with a vengeance, designing buildings with cleaner lines, stronger foundations, maybe subconsciously trying to rebuild structurally what had collapsed personally. The focus helped. My firm recognized the dedication. A promotion came, then an opportunity to lead a major project downtown. Success tasted different now, not like a shared victory, but like a personal affirmation of resilience. I sold the house, the one Sarah and I had shared. Too many ghosts, too many poison memories lingered in those rooms, especially the sunny yellow nursery that never got used. I bought a condo downtown, minimalist, modern, with sweeping city views. A space that was entirely mine, unburdened by the past. What happened to Sarah? The updates came sporadically, filtered through mutual acquaintances I hadn't cut off, or gleaned from the occasional awkward sighting from afar. She had the baby, a boy. Mark Jennings, true to form, wanted nothing to do with the public fallout. His wife apparently found out anyway. Carter's carefully worded letter might have been the catalyst, or maybe Mark's own carelessness caught up with him. Their marriage imploded messily. Mark, desperate to salvage his career, reportedly paid Sarah a lump sum for her silence and minimal child support, then did everything possible to distance himself. His promotion stalled indefinitely. Last I heard, he transferred to a different branch, trying to escape the whispers. Sarah, left largely alone, struggled. The money from Mark didn't last long. She couldn't maintain her previous lifestyle. The marketing career faltered. The demands of single motherhood and the shadow of the scandal made it difficult. She ended up moving back to her hometown, living with her parents, working a job far below her qualifications. I heard she tried online dating but found it difficult, the story of her recent past inevitably coming out. There were a few attempts to reach out to me in the first year, long, rambling emails sent late at night, filled with apologies that felt more like self-pity, sometimes subtly hinting at needing financial help. I never replied. I'd instructed Carter to handle any necessary legal communication regarding the final asset division, and I blocked her number, her email, her social media. Closure, for me, meant a clean break. About 6 months ago, I ran into her. It was one of those bizarre twists of fate. I was visiting my parents, who still lived near her hometown. We were at a local park fair, enjoying the summer afternoon. I was laughing at something my niece said when I looked up and saw her standing near a carousel, holding a small child's hand. She looked worn. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by practical, slightly faded attire. The confident sparkle in her eyes was replaced by a weary stress. She saw me at the same moment. Recognition flickered, followed by a complex mix of shame, maybe resentment, and a desperate sort of longing. She started to take a step towards me, then hesitated. The little boy tugged at her hand, oblivious. In that moment, seeing her not as the monster who betrayed me, but as a person struggling with the consequences of her choices, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel satisfaction or vindication. I felt a profound sense of distance. Pity, perhaps, but mostly just detachment. She was a chapter from a different book, a past life. I gave her a brief, neutral nod, not of forgiveness, but of acknowledgement, perhaps, then turned back to my family, back to my present, back to my real life. She didn't approach. The moment passed. My own life found its footing, then its stride. Therapy helped immensely in processing the betrayal, the grief, the anger. It helped me understand that her actions were about her flaws, her choices, not a reflection of my worth. I reconnected with friends who had stood by me, their loyalty a balm. My relationship with my family deepened. Their unwavering support was my anchor through the storm. And then, about a year ago, I met Anna. It was unexpected. A friend dragged me to a charity gala I had zero interest in attending. Anna was volunteering at the check-in desk. We started talking, and something just clicked. She's a veterinarian, compassionate, funny, fiercely independent, and honest. Brutally, refreshingly honest. Building trust wasn't easy for me. The scars ran deep. But Anna was patient. She listened without judgment when I eventually told her my story, the edited version at first, then gradually, the whole ugly truth. Her reaction wasn't pity, but empathy and respect for my resilience. She didn't try to fix me. She just walked beside me as I continued to heal. Being with her feels real, grounded. There's no pretense, no performance. It's a quiet partnership built on mutual respect and genuine affection, worlds away from the gilded cage of my marriage to Sarah. We're taking things slow, but for the first time since my world imploded, the future looks bright again, filled with possibility. Looking back now, that birthday dinner feels like a scene from a dark movie, starring someone else. The pain was excruciating. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. It forced me to confront the worst parts of human nature, the fragility of trust, and the devastating consequences of lies. But it also forced me to find a strength I didn't know I possessed. I learned that foundations can be rebuilt, even stronger than before, on pillars of self-respect and honesty. I learned that forgiveness isn't necessarily about absolving the other person, but about releasing yourself from the poison of resentment. I don't hate Sarah anymore. I don't waste energy wishing her ill. She made her bed, and she's lying in it. Her life is the consequence of her actions, just as my life now, the peace, the success, the budding happiness with Anna, is the result of mine. The scar is still there, a faint reminder of the wound. But it doesn't ache anymore. It's just a part of my story, a testament to survival, a reminder that even after the most destructive storms, new growth is possible. Life goes on, unexpected and often challenging, but ultimately, it's what you build from the ruins that defines you. And I'm building something good, something strong, something real. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope to see you again for more fascinating tales ahead. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next adventure. See you soon.